I'm over here. Are you
All
doing
right.
this?
Okay, everybody. I want to say thank you,
Yeah, are you
everybody
doing
who's
it here?
here tonight, and we'll ask everybody mute except for Stu. And just want to let you know this club is sponsored by the town of Fairfax and the Artist in Resident program. I'm one of the artists in residence in this town, and the reason it's completely free is it's covered through Park and Rec. All my boss asks of me is that we each put our name and city and state in the chat so that we can kind of track how many people we have each month and from where. Um, if you're interested, I was asking if any of you were photographers. If you're interested, you can join. It's free, like I said, and you can go to our Fairfax Photo Club Facebook page, and we have a couple questions that you answer, and then you're in. That's our whole process. You can post up to 2 posts a day. Each post can have a whole bunch of images, so you can post anything you want. We do have a photo challenge each month, and you're welcome to post those photos, which I really encourage people to do. We also have a YouTube channel, and we've had amazing speakers just like Stu, and you can see our past presentations. Um, Even Donald Kinney, let's see, Donald Kinney and Dennis Englander and Terry Scussel have all shown their work as well. So you would find that YouTube channel by looking for the Fairfax Photo Club. Our next meeting will be Thursday, June 9th, and I think I have someone lined up, and usually I will announce it, but tonight I haven't confirmed it, so I don't want to tell you. Um, let's see. I wanted to see if anybody has a show or some kind of fun announcement coming up. Anything coming up you want to share? Anyone with a show? I know Martha and Hines both have shows, and unfortunately, I can't find the flyer for Martha. And I told her I would post it. Okay, no one has anything coming up. All right,
Stephanie, would you state the next meeting date again? You said June 9th?
June 18th,
Oh, 18th. There you go.
Thursday. So it's always the third Thursday of the month, and it's 7 o'clock. Okay. Terry or Donald, do either of you have an announcement? I know Terry's going on a big photo trip. No, it's not a photo trip. Never mind. Your
It's a half photo trip.
half photo trip.
The rest of it is my high school reunion in Jesuit in Tampa.
Well, maybe you'll take photos there.
I am actually.
Do you have anything, Donald?
I've got nothing except if anybody has any ideas for a photo trip or photo walk or something like that. We're always trying to get a quorum together on that.
Yeah. And if
Get,
you're local, you can organize and run it too. So
yeah. Anybody wants to come to San Francisco, I'll help out. You can carry me down the street. Okay.
aw.
Donald, I'm happy to join in a photo walk. I don't know about the carrying you down the street
Uh,
thing.
I will put that on you. Great. Okay. Well, we'll see what we
This
can.
meeting is being
All right. So I think we're gonna just go
this
for
meeting
it.
is being
Oops. So everybody mute just for a few minutes. I think that's Virginia. Donald, can you mute everybody just for a sec? I normally have a great introduction for everybody, and Stu, I kind of forgot, but we were at a networking meeting, and I was stressing about trying to find a great photographer, and went to our 7 a.m. meeting, and Stu was there, and immediately somebody introduced the two of us because she thought we would have lots in common. And the minute I heard he was a photographer, I asked him to show me your work right now. And he showed me on his phone, or I looked on my phone, and I said, "Awesome, you want to present?" And he seemed more than happy to. And here we are now. So I'm excited to hand the floor over to Stu.
Thanks, Stephanie. Of course, then you told me that you wanted me to talk for an hour, and I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do that? But I'll just
I
present a
think
lot.
I said no more
I'm,
than an hour.
I'm going to present a lot of photos. We'll make it through. So thanks, Stephanie, for inviting me. Thanks to all of you in the Fairfax Photo Club who are here. Thanks to all my friends who are here. It's great to see everybody. Um, the title of the talk is "You Can't Plan This," and Donald asked what that meant. It's essentially talking about the role of serendipity in my photography. I used to be a purist. We'll talk about that, and really start to embrace the role that serendipity plays in at least giving me good things to shoot and share with the world. So a little bit about what I want to do. I'll do a quick introduction, then I'll talk about some of my photography philosophies and talk about some techniques, because I know there are some beginners here, and so wanted to just go through some a little bit more basic stuff, and then talk about serendipity. And I put questions last, but feel free to ask questions as we go, and I will do the best I can to answer them. So a little bit about me. I'm from New York originally. I've been in the Bay Area for what feels like a million years. How I spend my time generally is I'm the head of membership for a community for experienced professionals called the Open Water Group. Seth is the founder of that, who's here. I'm also on the board of Girls Unite, which is the largest girls-only soccer club in San Francisco. I spend a ton of time taking photos, or at least thinking about it. And I do the best I can to try and spread joy and laughter wherever I go. So like that picture of Santa Claus is one of my favorite holiday traditions, which is dressing up as Santa Claus and wandering around different parts of the Bay Area and just kind of surprising and delighting people. So a little bit about my journey. So this is from a trip in Switzerland. I had barely started as a photographer. It was really in 2012 that one of my customers slash friends said, Stu, you get to travel all over the place. I don't really get to go anywhere, and I would love to see the world through your eyes. And my first response was, no, you don't. But I said, sure, I'm happy to take pictures and send them. Not long after that, I took a trip to Switzerland. The photo on the left is an example of serendipity. I kind of got lost on a hiking trail in the Alps and ended up stumbling on this lake. I took that picture and ended up entering it into a photo contest, and it got second place in the photo contest. So felt like I was onto something, and so I was kind of off and running from there. So I'll give some examples of serendipity before I dive into the meat of the talk. So back, it's probably like 3 or 4 years ago now, I was hiking in the Marin Headlands and saw this weird white thing that looked like a rainbow, but it was in the fog. So I was like, it must be a fog bow. And turns out that is actually what it's called. And I shared a photo of it, and I said, I have never seen one of these before. I did not say nobody has ever seen one. I just said I hadn't seen one. And that picture took off and traveled around the world. And you see this headline from New Delhi Television's website that says, photographer shares picture of mysterious fog bow formation surprises internet. And I was like, well, if I am going to surprise the internet for something, it might as well be a picture of a fog bow. But that photo ended up on Time Magazine's website, Yahoo, some newspaper in Bali. It was all over the place. It was pretty hilarious. Christmas 2020 is another example of some serendipity. It was kind of a tough year for all of us with the pandemic. And I went out one morning to shoot the sunrise on the Aquatic Park Pier, which is sadly not open anymore. And I was looking east towards the sunrise when somebody walked up to me and said, if you turn around, there is a rainbow right behind you. And there it was. And at the time, all I was shooting on was my phone, and we'll talk about that too. A lot of my photos were taken on my phone up until about 2 years ago. But really amazing what you can see when, kindness of a stranger tells you to turn around. You have no idea what you might be missing by facing in the wrong direction. Another example, One day I went out to shoot the sun setting behind the Golden Gate Bridge, and stumbled across this violinist who apparently is there fairly often, but I had no idea that that was the case, and was lucky to bump into him on that particular day. And so, you know, moments like this are what this talk is all about. And then back closer to home, given Donald's Giants hat, this is particularly appropriate. So these photos are 10 years apart, both of the Willie Mays statue outside of the baseball stadium. One was taken the night that the Giants won the 2014 World Series, and then the other one was taken a couple of days after Willie Mays passed away. And I did not know they were going to be shooting off fireworks, but I happened to be standing on the right side of Willie Mays when they were, and tried to take a picture as if he were hitting a ball up into the sky and exploding. And then after he passed away, I knew I wanted to shoot another picture of the statue, and I went and I saw all these flowers on the base of the statue. But what I could not anticipate was the sun was setting at that moment in time, and I was able to position myself so it looks like he has a little bit of a sun halo. So so you know, it's kind of mixing a little bit of preparation, a little bit of opportunity, and I get photos like that. So now a little bit more about my photography. I'm not professionally trained. I'm learning as I go. I'm always experimenting, trying new things. We'll talk about how some of my favorite photos are accidents. The photo in the upper right was actually run by National Geographic at some point, and I was not even expecting to shoot that particular day. I was headed up to Hawk Hill and the Marin Headlands to shoot the sunrise, but the gate was closed, and so parked my car, started walking up, and part of the way up, I saw this view of the Golden Gate Bridge with the Bay Bridge in the background, took the photo, and less than a day later, National Geographic wrote to me and said, "We want to run this picture." And I was like, okay. and this was one of those moments where, you know, I mentioned that I shot a lot of stuff on my phone. I had people all the time telling me, get a real camera, get a real camera, get a real camera. And I was like, so now that National Geographic ran one of my photos that I shot on my phone, can I keep the phone? And they're like, you can shoot on whatever you want. So again, total accident that I ended up getting that shot. A couple of other places I've been featured: ABC News, Good Morning America, Travel and Leisure, SF Gate, Marin Magazine, Do the Bay, which is a Instagram account, named me on their list of Bay Area photographers you need to follow on Instagram. And then another viral example is earlier this year, took a picture of the sunset in San Francisco, posted it on X, and it happened that Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, ended up retweeting it, and it went wild to the tune of about 250,000 views, which is crazy to me. So, you know, as somebody who, as I said, is not classically trained, professionally trained, any of that, I've been blown away by the impact and reach that my photos have had, and feel really blessed. So a little bit about my photography philosophies. So first of all, the best camera that you have is the one that you have with you. That was part of why I kept my phone as my only source for a long time. You know, as I was out hiking all the time, and it was really easy because I had my phone with me all the time, and I didn't have to worry about somebody wanted to steal a camera, or, like, you know, was my battery dead, whatever. And so so that is one of my philosophies. Another is that the best photographs show you something new or something old in a new way. You know, I did end up getting a drone a couple of years ago, and I think the drone has been particularly fantastic for showing people something familiar in an unfamiliar way. So, for example, this picture of Lombard Street from directly above, which was also another day that I was not planning to shoot that. I went to shoot the sunrise and it was fogged out. And on my way home, I said, you know, I got the drone in the car. Maybe I'll go shoot Lombard Street from above. And so that's what that picture is. Another philosophy is that art should elicit emotion, and photography is art, and therefore should elicit emotion. And so let me pause here and talk a little bit more about my journey. So I had mentioned the friend who back in 2012 asked me to share photos with her. So one day I took a picture and I got a thumb in one of the photos, as we all have at some point, and I wanted to crop it. And I did, at the time there weren't a lot of apps that could do that, so I looked around and found one called Snapseed, and I was able to crop my thumb out. And then I was like, let me see what else I can do with this app. And so I started playing around with some of the editing features and functions, and then I would send them to people. And instead of the reaction that I used to get, which was, "Oh, that's kind of a cool pic," suddenly the reactions were like, "Whoa!" And I was like, maybe I'm onto something. And so I started editing photos at that point, and haven't really looked back since. Um, I I really love that I can put a smile on people's faces that I have never met and may never meet. Some stories that I've heard over time, like there's a woman who lives in Chicago, and one day she wrote to me, said, "You know what? I grew up in San Francisco and I was in the crappiest mood today. And then I saw this picture that you posted from where I grew up, and it totally turned my day around." I had another person say, "I just got out of surgery to remove a brain tumor, and the first thing I saw was one of your photos, and it reminded me that everything is going to be all right." And then I had another person tell me, "You know what? I love this picture of a rainbow, and it turns out I'm on my way to see my mom, and my mom always loves to see your latest and greatest stuff, so I can't wait to show it to her." And I'm just like, I have no idea who these people are. I'm just like, say hi to your mom. But as I said, I love that I can brighten up the day of people who maybe having a tough day, who I may not even know. Um, it's also why, as you see a lot of my photos, the Golden Gate Bridge is in there. And as much as anything, it's because I know that having the bridge in my photos triggers a lot of emotional thoughts for people. There's a lot of emotional content around the bridge. So it might be a picture of the bridge at sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset, rainbow, fog, whatever it is. People will see that picture and then they see the Golden Gate Bridge, and it suddenly takes them back to where they grew up. It takes them back to the trip they took with their parents or their significant other. It takes them back to whatever, and it just reminds them of something. And they're no longer looking at just a photo of the bridge with whatever's going on, and maybe they can say, "Oh, that's a cool photo," but they're thinking about everything else. And so that's part of why you'll see the bridge in so many of my photos. It's kind of give the people what they want. Like, I know if I post a picture of a beautiful sunset, people will say, "Oh, it's kind of cool." But if I put a picture up of a beautiful sunset with a Golden Gate Bridge in it, it's a whole different story. Another philosophy of mine is add to the photographic conversation. So, before I shoot something, I'm trying to think what's already been photographed here in this place, or what can I do that no one has done yet, so that I can add to the conversation. So, one example that I'll show in a little bit is the lunar eclipse that we had a couple of months ago. People had asked me before, like, are you going to go shoot the eclipse? And I'm like, maybe. I want to see the eclipse just, because I'm interested in it. But I don't know that any photo I take of the eclipse is going to be any different than what other people post of the eclipse. Similarly, there were, this past weekend in San Francisco, there was the Illuminate laser show. I'm not sure how many of you saw that. And so if you see this picture, there were lasers going in both directions from the Transamerica Pyramid. And I went down to North Beach to shoot the lasers coming out of the pyramid. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll add a little bit to this conversation by going back to my car, getting my tripod, and shooting the light trails of cars and buses and whatever going on. So this particular picture that you see on the screen is a bus turning onto Columbus. And I feel like that adds a lot to the conversation. It was different than most of the other photos that I'd seen. Another philosophy of mine is find your own style. Shoot the things that interest you, whether it's portraits, landscapes, whatever, pick, you be you, and experiment and find the things that you like taking pictures of. It's there's an awful lot of things that you could take pictures of. Like, the last month Donald was showing all the amazing stuff that he takes just walking around and looking around the financial district in San Francisco. Wherever you are, there's interesting things to shoot. So I would say find your own style. And then I would also say look for inspiration from others. Like, go on Instagram, go on Google Maps, see what else is out there. So when I was in Paris a few years back, I was looking on Instagram or Google Maps, I can't remember which, and I was near Montmartre and saw a picture of this leaning house, which it's not really leaning, but it's on a hill. And so if you're in a particular spot looking towards the house, and then you straighten the photo so the hill is flat, it looks like the house is leaning, which I thought was pretty cool. And I'll share a map a little bit later with some of my favorite spots in and around San Francisco, but there are plenty of those. All right, so techniques is when I talked to Stephanie, she said there are a handful of people here who are a little bit more beginners, so I wanted to do a little bit of a kind of composition thing too. So a little bit about what I use. I mentioned my phone. That's a ton of the photos I've taken. I do now have a drone, which is a Mavic 3 Pro, and I now have a real camera, which is a Sony A7 III and a Tamron lens. Software, I use a whole bunch of different software. So I feel like I've become an amateur astronomer. Like, I could tell you almost all the time, like what phase of the moon we're in. I could tell you what time the sun is rising and setting. I could tell you what time the moon is rising and setting. I feel like I'm kind of constantly on the lookout for interesting stuff related to that. I use a couple of apps to help with planning shots. So originally, my alignment shots, like this picture of the moon behind the Salesforce Tower, were accidents. And then I realized at some point it's all math, and there are apps that you can use to help with the planning of this. And so this particular one, I used an app called Planet Pro, and I won't go into all the details of how you use it, but essentially you can say, here's what I want to have in kind of the, that I'm shooting towards. And then and here's like I want it to be the sun or the moon, and I'm thinking about shooting on this day. And then it'll tell you, here are all the locations that you can find the sun or the moon right behind that thing that you're looking at, which is amazing to me, just how easy that is. But there you go. For editing, and I'll also talk in a bit about editing because I mentioned that I used to be a purist and I am not anymore. So Snapseed is a free app that's now owned by Google. I use Adobe Lightroom. For videos, I use CapCut and DaVinci Resolve most of the time. Time lapses, any number of different things. Most of us at this point have a time lapse app on our phones, and so I use that. So that's a little bit of the software. Without getting into a ton of details, shooting some basic stuff. If you're going to use your phone, know how you can quickly open, because things happen, they just pop up and you want to take a picture of it. Like, I know on my phone, if I press the power button twice, I can set it to open my camera. And so that's a really fast way for me, but everybody has different ways that depending on your phone, but figure out how do you get to your camera as quickly as possible. Focusing, for those who don't know, you can put your finger on the screen that should focus on wherever your finger is. Exposing, generally speaking, to underexpose a photo is better than overexposing, because in editing you can bring light out of the shadows, but if you've overexposed, you cannot recover blown out highlights. So it's better if a photo is too dark than too light in general. Optical zoom is better than digital zoom. So if you've got multiple lenses on your phone, it won't help you necessarily if you start zooming with your fingers to get from, like, maybe the lens is a 2x lens to get to 2.5 or 4 or whatever. It's really no different than taking a picture at 2 and then cropping it after the fact. So you do you, but generally the quality is only at the optical zoom level. Shooting modes, just learn how to use those for your phone: portrait, panorama, hyperlapse, whatever you got, play around with it, see what you like. And then kind of as you get to the next level, there are things you can do, like at least on my phone, you can shoot in RAW, which the files are a lot bigger, but they carry a lot more photographic information. And so it makes it easier to edit those photos if that's what you want to do. You can also do some non-automatic things. So like I can slow down or speed up the shutter depending on what I'm shooting. Like if I'm shooting sports related stuff, I'll want to speed up the shutter. So I'm shooting at 1/1000th of a second instead of whatever automatic setting it uses. So again, those are things you can learn over time, but I just wanted to highlight some of the basics. Lighting in photography is pretty much everything. So, you know, people will tell you golden hour is best time, blue hour is also a good time, but you can shoot anytime. It's just going to change the way things are. If the sun is directly overhead and you're doing landscape photography or even portraiture, it's trickier, but there's always a way to make it work. Composing a photo, I want to spend a little bit of time on this. So I love thinking about different ways to compose a photo to make it a little bit more interesting. So there's something called the rule of thirds, which essentially says don't put things dead center in the photo frame. You can, you know, but you can also, again, play around with not having it dead center in the photo frame. So just a couple of examples of that. This is a lavender field on the left in France. And I thought it would be more interesting to put that tree off to the left side. And then this is from a hike in Scotland. Same thing. I could have put the I do not know the name of that flower, but I could have put it right dead center, but I feel like it makes that picture a lot more interesting to have it off to the left. Leading lines is another composition technique. So using whatever lines there are, natural ones, artificial ones, to pull people into the photo. So a hiking trail in Switzerland, Lion Street Steps, back to the lavender field and sunflower field in France, or a road in Chinatown. You can see how those photos are example of using lines to draw people into the photo. Framing is another compositional technique I use all the time. So looking for natural frames or man-made frames, whether it's a fence that's got a hole cut into it, whether it's the Golden Gate Bridge and I can spot the pyramid through the tower, or the lower right there is the pyramid through the cables. One of my favorite spots is in the Presidio, where you can see the Golden Gate Bridge through those trees in the upper right. I was once visiting a friend in San Francisco, and her neighbor had this heart-shaped thing on her door, and then I was able to see the bridge through it. And so, you know, again, just think about what frames are out there, because those are the kind of things that I think are fun and surprising to people. Then also think about using reflections and shadows and silhouettes just to make things different and more interesting. You know, whether it's like the picture not quite upper left, but the second one in is the reflection of the shadow of the Golden Gate Bridge in the water, which I had never quite seen like that before. But one day I was walking over the bridge and looked down and saw that, and I thought that was pretty cool. But silhouettes are also fun, so think about how you can use those. And then I would also say look up, look down, look all around. Like I was mentioning Donald's photos from the financial district, and he clearly does a lot of that. You know, I'm always trying to look around and see what's there. Sometimes that means changing my position. So this shot of a female soccer player from the back was taken with me laying down on the ground. You can see that red hour pointing to me laying on the ground, and it just made that shot a little bit more interesting. I also got down pretty low to shoot that lavender field. I was sitting on the ground to shoot this bench on pier, I think it's Pier 7 in San Francisco. Lay down on the ground, take a picture of the bridge under those chains, and then the picture of the chapel in Yosemite. Didn't have to lay down for that one, but rather than shooting it straight on, I changed my position and shot it from an angle. But again, this is kind of stuff that I would say play around with it. And then relatedly, be patient. Like, I fortunately have time on my hands where I can be patient and I can wait for certain things to happen. Whether it's, knowing that there's a lot of waves and I'm just waiting for the right big splash to spray the water all over the place, or it's a little hard to see, but that red arrow is pointing to the moon during another eclipse from like 4 or 5 years ago. And by waiting a little bit, putting myself in the right spot, I was able to get the moon sitting right on top of San Francisco City Hall. So again, move around and just kind of look around, see what you can do to play. Another technique is negative space. So don't feel like you have to fill every photo with something, like just cram stuff in there. Sometimes photos are a little bit more interesting if there's a lot of blank space in the photo. So that's it on composition. Quick thing on editing. So I mentioned I used to be a purist, and I used to say, however I take the photo is how I'm going to post or share the photo. And at some point, I mentioned I was playing around with Snapseed, and I was like, oh, I can actually do some fun things with editing. Well, shooting in RAW, which I mentioned I do a lot, the files are pretty flat and boring, but they have a ton of information in them, so you can play around quite a bit. So this is a shot from my drone of sunrise in San Francisco. On the left is the RAW file as it came out of the camera on the drone, and then the photo on the right, exact same photo, just edited. And so all I did was, make the colors look a lot more like what I saw when I was shooting it. But there's creative expression. You can, the same photographer can, edit a photo a million different ways, give two photographers the same photo. There is very little chance that they will edit it the same way. And so this is a little bit of a chance for you to put your own stamp on a photo. So that's kind of the techniques part. Now back to serendipity. Any questions before I jump into this section?
We've had two questions, and I didn't want to stop you, but
All good. Bring it on.
do you want them now or do you want them at the end?
Let's take them now. Break it up a little bit.
There was a question from Virginia.
Uh-huh.
Want to ask Virginia, or do you want me to? Virginia, are you still with us? Let's see.
You can ask it.
Yes, I am. I just
Oh.
was muted. Yeah, go ahead. I just like, so there, I'm in Santa Cruz, and there's a guy here in Santa Cruz that I ran into a while back.
Mhm.
And he has thousands of, he shoots with his phone all the time and just wanders the streets,
Mhm.
and has his pictures get picked up by everybody. And I mean, his pictures are fine, but they're, so is everybody else's.
Mhm.
So what do you do, or how do you, any advice on how to get more eyeballs, more, how do you get things to go viral? How do you like get your work to be seen?
That's a fantastic question. Kind of two separate things, right? So how do they go viral? I have no idea. It's a mystery. Like, pictures that end up going crazy. Most of the time I can't predict it. Sometimes I can, right? So like April Fool's Day this year, I did a fake photo of the Golden Gate Bridge in green, and like a fake press release saying like, hey, for, Earth Month, they're turning the Golden Gate Bridge in green, and just, a funny thing that I figured a bunch of people would share with their friends, and they did. Or there's something called California Henge, which we'll talk about in a little bit too, that happens twice a year in San Francisco. And it's where if you're standing on California Street looking east, the Bay Bridge Tower is right at the end of the street, and twice a year the sun will come up right behind it. And a bunch of photographers go out, and it's, different newspapers, whatever, talk about it all the time in the run up to it. And I was like, well, what if I helped people? What if I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to give you a map to the spot or a couple of spots that you can stand in, and I'm going to tell you exactly what time you should be there and what day. And people loved it, right? Because, it's something that they can use, and then they're sharing it with all their friends. And at least on Instagram, it's looking for signals like that, right? Like if they see that photos are being saved, if they see that they're being shared, then they will do more to boost those photos. But you can also talk to different local places. You can message them and say, like, hey, Santa Cruz Sentinel or whatever it's called down there, like, I am a photographer and I love shooting these things. Are there particular photos that you'd like to see? And or subjects that you'd like covered?
I know that doesn't work. That doesn't work at the Sentinel, trust me.
All right.
It doesn't work at any of the local papers. They each have one or two photographers who will not let you in, period.
Right. Well, I mean, so this is where, the Sentinel may be a bad example, but, like the San Francisco Chronicle is the same thing. Like they will never, at least I've never seen the Chronicle run a photo but taken by somebody else, but SF Gate does it all the time. And there are other travel related, like there are different Instagram accounts that are trying to boost things about San Francisco. So like there's one called Only in SF, and I shot a bunch of stuff of the sunset last night, and I tagged them in it, and then they ended up running with it and today. And so just the latest example of that happening. So the Sentinel may be a bad example, but there may be other Santa Cruz tourism type things.
Yeah, because I do a lot of tagging. Though I don't even know what I'm doing. I probably need to learn how to do a better job. But yeah, the tagging pretty much just dies a natural death. I mean, I never have people calling me going, "Oh wow, I saw your work," and blah blah blah. I mean, it's very. I don't know whether it's just because Santa Cruz is like not San Francisco, but it's very, very, very frustrating. I'm a really good photographer, and I'm kind of, finding it difficult to get an audience outside of the one I already have.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. How about you and I set up some time after this to talk about it? Because I want to keep going and answer whatever questions.
One more question from Michael.
If I did the photo on a tripod, is that still cell phone or a camera? So could be either. So a couple of years back, Thanksgiving, I went out to shoot the sunrise and ended up next to, I'm going to call him a kid. He was probably like 20 years old, and he had his big fancy DSLR that he was shooting with, but he also had his cell phone on a tripod that he was shooting a time lapse with. And I looked at that and I was like, huh, if he can shoot a time lapse on a cell phone, I can shoot a time lapse on a cell phone. And if I want to shoot photos off a tripod on a cell phone, I can do that too. And so it's both. Like you can, I ended up getting a cheapo tripod on Amazon and then a cell phone mount that's super easy. And so either is doable. In fact, I'm gonna talk in 1 second about a great time lapse story shot on my phone. So any other questions?
I think that was it.
All right. So shooting, I would say don't, going into serendipity, don't underestimate luck. So the fog bow, as I mentioned, I had never seen one of those before, didn't really know what it was. I posted it, as I said, and I said, I have never seen one of these before. And it went crazy, like super viral. And one other photographer I know was like, well, I see them all the time. And I'm like, I didn't say that they don't exist. I just said I hadn't seen it before. And for whatever reason, it sparked people to start sharing it. This headline from SF Gate, who I just mentioned, but missed last night's spectacular meteor. Check out this time-lapse video. So again, luck played a role. There was one day that the clouds were coming into San Francisco at sunset, and I was like, I think that looks like it'll be a cool sunset. I'm going to put my phone on my windowsill, and I had somewhere to be, so I just left my phone there. I forgot to set an end time. Like normally I might say shoot for an hour or whatever, and I forgot to set an end time, so it just kind of kept going. And then I came home and I was like, huh, wonder what the sunset ended up looking like. And I was like, oh, look at that. It was pretty cool. And then I just let it run and it kept going, going, going. And the sky was getting darker. And all of a sudden there was a flash of light. And I was like, what the heck is that? And I got online and it's like, oh, look at that. Apparently there was a meteor in San Francisco tonight. And so I wrote to SF Gate and I said, hey, I got not just a picture of it, but I have a time lapse of it. And, then a reporter called me the next day and they're like, how did you end up shooting it? I'm like, accident. And they're like, what did you use to shoot it? I'm like, my phone leaning on a windowsill, like nothing fancy. And so they ended up running this article about it. And I shared it on Facebook. And then a friend of mine from college shared it in a lab that he's affiliated with. And next thing I knew, that day I got a Facebook message from a woman saying, hey, Stu, I'm a interplanetary astronomer, and I would love to use your video the next time I teach a class on interplanetary collisions. And I was like, okay. She's like, would you? I'm like, okay. And then she said, oh, and by the way, I was having lunch today with the chief scientist from NASA, and he wants to use the video too. I was like, okay. So, as I said, crazy things happen, without planning. I mentioned the sun halo over the Willie Mays statue. I mentioned the violinist, the Christmas rainbow. So the lightning was another good one where I one night was woken up by a flash of light outside, looked out my window, eventually realized that we had a lightning storm in San Francisco, which is highly unusual. And I had been planning to wake up the next day and go shoot the sunrise. So I went down to Aquatic Park Pier, which was one of my favorite spots to shoot before they closed it. And I was about to shoot the sunrise, but there was still lightning in the sky. And I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, I don't have, like, there's no way to shoot, or very few ways you could shoot lightning on a phone, like in a photo, because your timing would have to be impeccable and unusual. And so I was like, well, maybe I could shoot a video. And then I looked at him like, no, my phone card is pretty much full. There's no way I can shoot a video. And so I was like, well, what I can do though is I can shoot a time lapse on my phone and have it go every 10th of a second. So it's not quite a video, but it's still shooting pretty frequently. And suddenly there was a big burst of light. And I'm going to say, standing out at a pier, shooting in a lightning storm, probably not the smartest thing I've ever done. But that's the photo that resulted. Like when I saw the burst of light, I was like, I really hope that I caught something in there. And that was one of the frames in the time lapse. And so I got lucky, just happened to, that flash happened to be there and I had to improvise because my phone memory was full. But that's the photo that resulted. And it was made even better later the day I posted it when someone took that photo and added, if you've seen the movie Ghostbusters, they added the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man to that photo, which I thought was fantastic. They're like, you don't mind, do you? And I'm like, I think that's hilarious. So as I said, luck plays a huge role in my photography.
Mike
Um,
asking if you do any publications pay you for these photos?
The only publication that has paid me so far was Stanford Magazine. They said, if we'd love you to run around campus and see what you take, and if we run something, we'll pay you. So that's technically when I became a professional photographer. But otherwise, no. But like it's one of those things, like I'm not terribly worried about it. Like, I mean, I do have a website and people can buy stuff off my website, whether it's prints or greeting cards or mugs or t-shirts or sweatshirts, whatever. So I can make money that way. Like I don't push it that hard. But it's one of those things where like I I don't need National Geographic to pay me. Like National Geographic running one of my photos is payment enough. And so, for me, a lot of this that I'm doing is really just to make the world a better place. Maybe I should be a little bit more opportunistic. I don't know. I'm not like, it's one of those things where I'm sure, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm sure, but a lot of places would say, well, why would I pay you if I can get another photographer to give it to me for free? So for me, I think it's more about getting my name out there. And like so many people have seen my stuff now that it's great. Like when I went to shoot the sunset last night, this guy was staring at me. He's like, "Do you know who I am?" And I'm like, "I have no idea who you are." He's like, you know, he tells me his name. I'm like, "Oh my God, we follow each other on Instagram and followed each other for years." Of course, his profile photo is not his face, so I could not recognize him. Um, but yeah, it's weird when I'm walking down the street and people are like, "Are you doing SF?" I'm like, yes, I am. So I'll that to me is more fun than worrying about, you know, squeezing another dollar out of publication. But maybe I'm doing it all wrong, and I'm happy to get any advice that people might have. So continuing on the improvised theme, you know, when it's raining, to me, that means rainbows. And so I'm always keeping my eye out for rainbows. I mentioned when my memory card was full and had to deal with that. There was a time I was in France and wanted to shoot a time lapse of the clouds over the Louvre, but I didn't have a tripod with me, so I just put my phone in my shoe and stood there shoeless for a little while it shot the time lapse. So, you know, think about what you got and do what you can to do the best you can. Then you know, sometimes I don't even know when I'm shooting something what I got. And so you know, for example, that I went to shoot the sun setting behind the Golden Gate Bridge and ended up with this kite surfer and windsurfer in the photo, which, you know, rather than showing a zoomed out version, cropping in and showing them, I thought made that photo a little bit stronger. These pelicans flying past the Golden Gate Bridge, I love pelicans, and I mentioned how much I love the Golden Gate Bridge. And so as the pelicans were flying by, I was taking a bunch of shots of them, but had no idea that I had caught this particular one where I just love the pattern of them around the bridge. So again, sometimes it's just luck, right? Like nothing I could do to put the pelicans in the right place. They just happen to be there. You know, fog is another one. You know, a lot of people get upset when the fog rolls in. I smile because of the fun stuff that fog does to the landscape. And, you know, fog is particularly fun to shoot time lapses of and just see how fast it's really moving. Another great moment for me was, you know, sometimes nature comes to your front door, sometimes it comes to your fire escape. So a couple of months back, I heard this absolute ruckus outside my window, and after about 10 minutes, I went to see what was going on and opened up the blinds, and there was a whole group of parrots hanging out there. And if you are not aware of it, the name for a group of parrots is a pandemonium. And I can tell you that was, they are very aptly named. So that was pretty hilarious. I mentioned this shot of the lightning before. That's just a little bit larger version of it for you. This picture, which also went super viral, was I just happened to be, you know, like a lot of times during rainy days where the sun is kind of coming and going, I'm looking out the window all the time. But you know, sometimes I'm on call, sometimes it's hard to do that. And I just happen to look out the window at exactly the right moment in time for this shot. And so, you know, I've taken a lot of pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's definitely one of my favorites. I talked before about adding to the photographic conversation. This is from the lunar eclipse we had in San Francisco a few months ago. I was thinking I would shoot an alignment shot with the moon sitting on top of Sutra Tower. And I got there at, I don't know, a little before 3 a.m, and it was totally clear. And then about 10 minutes later, it was completely fogged out. So, you know, it's a classic, like, man plans and God laughs. And so I ended up driving around San Francisco looking for a clearing in the fog. Finally found one in the Castro, so was able to shoot these photos. And then the next day, as I said, I saw a lot of people who had posted a picture of the eclipse, and I was like, well, I have all of these pictures at different times, and wouldn't it be cool to show kind of the progression of the eclipse? So this was my way of trying to add to the photographic conversation in that particular time. Another time, you know, again, all of this serendipity stuff is essentially, you know, it's the expression of luck is preparation plus opportunity, right? So, you know, I typically have my drone nearby. I typically have, my phone ready, my camera ready. And so, particularly on rainy days where the sun is coming and going, I'm ready. And this particular day, at some point, I looked at I was like, it feels to me like I've just developed this feel, right? So it's like, it feels to me like there's going to be a rainbow pretty soon. And for those who don't know, rainbows always appear 180 degrees away from the sun. So if you take nothing away from today, but that's your learning. And so, because for a little while before I became, as I said, an amateur astronomer, I'd be looking all over the place, like, where's the rainbow? Where's the rainbow? I know it's around here somewhere. And now it's super easy. Just kind of put my back to the sun and the rainbow is right in front of me. So I checked the webcam on, can't remember if it was Salesforce Tower or one of the other buildings down there, and I saw the rainbow, ran outside, put the drone up in the air. And one of the beautiful things about the drone is I can move it around so that I can do an alignment shot, right? So I can have the rainbow that I see in the sky and Coit Tower, and they're in completely different places, but by flying around a little bit, I can move that rainbow essentially behind Coit Tower and get a shot like that. Another Coit Tower shot. One day I was shooting the sunrise and noticed that the Bay Bridge Tower was right behind Coit Tower, and by moving the drone around, I was able to put them side by side like that. And then for those who do have a drone, you know that during Giants games, they are very, very restrictive about where you can fly. There's essentially a 3 nautical mile circle drawn around the baseball stadium that you cannot fly in from like an hour before the game until an hour after the game. And so there was this one day a couple of months ago where I was like, I think it's going to be a beautiful sunset tonight, looking at the clouds. And so I want to fly and take a picture. And so I went over, like within a couple of blocks of the Palace of Fine Arts is where that circle ends. And so I had a very narrow strip where I could put the drone up in the air and get this picture of the Palace of Fine Arts with the sun or the beautiful clouds at sunset behind it. So that's why I say sometimes, there's luck. Sometimes you make your own luck. Sometimes it's just like, it's knowing your environment, being ready. Another time shooting the sunset behind the bridge, which you could tell is a popular theme for me. And then these pelicans photobomb me, and loved it when that happened. Another time a couple of years ago was on a whale watching trip, and they said, all right, we're turning the boat around, head back home. And as soon as we did, that's when the whale breached. So was able to get a picture. It's like, again, you always you're on a whale boat, always have your camera, phone, whatever ready just in case. So these are just some more photos that I've taken. Anybody know the Spanish word for pelican?
Tell us.
So there you go. Mark's got it. It is alcatraz. And so in this particular case, there's a pelican flying right in the upper right, pelican flying right over Alcatraz. So I thought it'd be kind of cool, given that they are named for each other, if you will, to get the picture of them together. But these are just other examples of right place, right time, preparing, checking the webcams, being ready to get out. These are some more alignment shots. I mentioned alignments are all just math and using apps to tell you when is the sun going to be behind this building or that building. The weather conditions do not always cooperate, but when they do, you can get some magic. So at the end of the day, it's really just like get outside. Although sometimes if you have a good view, windows are fine too, but just like, nature presents us with, the world presents us with all of these beautiful sights that you can see. So, do what you can to capture them, share them with other people, do what you can to try and brighten up somebody's day. As I mentioned before, find your own style, shoot the things that interest you, leave room for the unexpected. This picture was actually last night. So I figured, I'm not going to get much fresher than taking a picture last night and including it in here. And that said, you also, I mentioned look up, look down, look all around. I was not initially looking behind me, and you never know when someone's going to be taking a photo of you taking a photo. And so that's a picture of me taking that last photo. I mentioned before that I would share some of my favorite spots, so I can send you all this link, or you can take a picture of that QR code. But it's about 10 spots kind of scattered around the Bay Area that I particularly like, whether it's Hawk Hill or Marshall's Beach in the Presidio. There's a bunch of different places. And then in closing, as I said, just get out and shoot, practice, 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 have fun. Follow me on Instagram if you want. I'm Stu and SF. You can go to my website, stubermanphotography.com. As I mentioned, I sell prints and merchandise. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I would love to hear if there's anything that you've taken away from tonight's talk. Feel free to put it in the chat or email me. I see there's another question from Sandy. Now that is Alcatraz, not San Quentin. I was standing at Crissy Field Beach at the time that I took that, and I have no zoom lens capable of seeing San Quentin from there.
I did.
Yep. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
Well, why don't we take a split second and we'll, I want to share every month I said we have a photo challenge. It's usually inspired by our speaker. And this month, obviously, Stu has created our, bear with me, I'm share our little photo challenge. There we go. You want to read it for us?
Sure. So, continuing in the serendipity theme, capture the moment where nature and the man-made world collide in an unplanned way. Landscape and nature photography is not only about planning. Sometimes you need to be ready for the unexpected. So for this challenge, lean into pure serendipity. Watch the conditions, when the weather shifts, the fog moves, or something wild crosses your path, react.
So I'm going to post this. If you want to take a picture of it, I'm going to post it on Facebook. And please share your photos with us, inspired by Stu. It'd be really fun. And Stu, I saw you're on Facebook now, so I bet he would make some comments too.
Mm-hmm. Ada, what do you mean about, what's the question about printing?
About printing your photography.
So
If you will, next time, I guess that's a big subject.
yeah,
I was asking if you will ever talk about printing.
Sure. So let me try again. The website that I use is on a platform called Art Storefronts, and their website platform is hooked up to a printer down near Santa Cruz in Scotts Valley called Bay Photo. And so any photo that I'm printing for myself, I essentially can put it on the website and then do a self-made order. So like if I personally want a photo like this one or these, like I just do a self-made order there, because then I'm just paying the wholesale price. And they do a really good job. But you can upload anything you want to Bay Photo and they'll print it. There may be better ones on the East Coast or other ones on the East Coast. They happen to be, as I said, West Coast. I can look into it for you, but you can always upload a photo to them and pay retail and say, like, I want to get this photo printed out. But as I said, they do a great job. And the prints that I sell on my website, you can buy it on metal, canvas, paper, wood, acrylic. I happen to like metal. Like, I just think it's cool, and it's also super easy and light to hang up. So like you can get what's called command strips from 3M, and essentially just like, it's a little adhesive thing you put on the wall, and it's like 2 Velcro strips, and put it up on the wall, and boom, you're done. Like, no nails in the wall or anything like that. So I like metal, but other people like it's like some people want to buy it on, I don't sell frames on my site because if someone were to order a frame from me, they would have to pay so much in shipping that it gets crazy. And so it's better for me to sell it on paper. And Bay Photo does a good job of packaging it, so it'd be mounted on cardboard, whatever, and then find a frame locally.
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that was a fantastic presentation. So just wanted to get that in there. Appreciate seeing all those early morning photos and sunsets. It just blows me away. I wish I was able to get up that early in the morning still,
Well,
but
so the nice thing is living in San Francisco, typically the beautiful, colorful sunrises are in the winter.
yep.
And conveniently, that's when it's like more like 7 a.m. that the sun would be rising.
Yeah.
So like right now when sunrise is at, whatever, 5:45 in the morning,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it because it's rare that we get a colorful sunrise in the summertime.
Yeah.
So we're in the right place as a photographer, but I'll tell you, during the winter, it's exhausting to be like, every day, like, waking up, looking at the webcams, seeing what's going on. But on the flip side, in the winter, the sun sets are early, right? It's like 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can go to bed early too.
Appreciate that. But I think it's well worth what you do, getting out there and putting the extra effort into it.
Mhm.
So great. Thanks. Great presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Other thoughts? Anybody take anything else away from this that they want to share? Anything you're going to try?
Quick questions, Stu. Could you speak to your photo library management and sort of your workflow of how to not end up with 10 million external hard drives of photos?
I wish I could say that I didn't end up with that. Yeah, that is not, anybody who knows me knows organization is not my strong suit. At least as relates to file management. Maybe this should not be on YouTube, but yeah, so I don't have a great answer for that, but I'm happy to hear it. I mean, this is where like I love Google Photos, and so this is also the benefit of having taken a lot of photos on my phone. And so my photos, since I'm an Android user, yes, I know. But I do think Samsungs take better photos than Apple. Heresy, I'm sure. But on my phone photos automatically get uploaded to Google Photos, and it's super easy to search there, whether it's by location or subject or whatever. It's like I can type in moon and it's like I feel like it would take me, and so sometimes what I'll do is I'll use Google Photos to help me figure out where, like when I shot something. So it's like, what was the date that I shot this thing in Yosemite? And it's like I can go to Google Photos, type in Yosemite, get the date, and then go into Lightroom and find that. So that's my way around it, but happy to talk about it at some point, and maybe you and I together can figure out the best way to do it. Or maybe
Sounds
that's
great.
the blind leading the blind. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be.
Anybody
Thanks.
here do a great job with photo organization? I'm enjoying seeing all the heads going, nope.
I triple back my stuff up. I use Photo Shelter, and I use an external drive, and I use iCloud.
I have 2 external drives and I use Backblaze, so same. But it doesn't, so it's nice to feel backed up, but it doesn't help with organization.
Organization, you're right. But no, but I put my client's name in, so all I have to type in is the client's name. So you're
right. Well, who is my client? You are all, the world is my client. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like I have taken thousands and thousands and thousands of photos that have not and probably will not ever see the light of day, right? Like, I go out shoot a bunch of photos. I might take, 100 photos of the same thing, just at different moments in time. And then I will choose one that I edit and I will post that, and I will not go back to that set, generally not go back to that set of photos and be like, was there something else in there that in my rush to just pull up one and edit it? Right. Because, at the end of the day, like I'm not worried about being perfect. I'm worried. It's more about just good enough. Right. Like it used to be the case, particularly when I was shooting on my phone, I would be out shooting wherever and I'd be surrounded by photographers, and they've all got their big fancy cameras and everything else. And, we'd shoot whatever we'd shoot, and we're walking back to our cars. And because I'm on my phone, I'm literally like, as we're walking, I'm taking one of the photos, editing it, and it was up on Instagram before we even got in our car. And they would be like, dude, we just shot that like 2 minutes ago. And I'm like, I'm good enough at editing that I can do it quickly. And at the end of the day, if someone's looking at it on Instagram or Facebook, it doesn't have to be. Now, if I'm going to put it on my website and then someone's going to put it on their wall, then I'll spend more time cleaning that photo up. But to just get it up on, on social media, I'm not overly concerned. The backup site, Judith, that I use is Backblaze.
How do you spell it?
Backblaze.
Oh, okay. That's
Christian, do I have any photographers that inspire me? So, I tend to look primarily at other Bay Area photographers, as much as anything, because I've met them out shooting. And that to me is also kind of fun, is that there's like a little community of us that all know each other. It's like, I joke that something like California Henge is kind of like the zombie apocalypse, because, to get out and shoot California Henge, you're out by like 5:30 in the morning. And so, you see the photographers who are kind of traipsing around with their camera, their tripod, whatever, at 5:30 in the morning, like all to go to one of a couple of different places. And so, it's always one of those where you just start introducing yourselves, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, I follow you on Instagram. I follow you on Instagram. Like and so yeah, there's a bunch of people locally that I think are awesome, and I look to for inspiration all the time. I haven't necessarily looked at, who shoots in Rochester, Minnesota, aside from Christian Obando, that I want to follow. But yeah, I should.
Looks like Michael has a question.
Yes, Michael. Michael has the best backgrounds.
Okay. Well, first thing I want to say is I shot that background with the exact same phone that you use.
Nice.
So I
knew I liked you. I knew I liked you.
Needless to say, and now I'm thinking, gee, I could, use that so many more ways. But everything that I have on my background is from the S23 Ultra Android. Anyway, but the question is, with you putting all your work all over the place, does anybody ever, because copyright's an issue and some people put copyright and watermarks on their pictures, did anybody steal your work and use it for something like big, and they making all this money and they don't give you anything? Is that, are you affected by that at all?
So, two separate questions. Has anyone stolen my work? Sure. Like, there are times on Facebook where somebody will post a photo that's mine. And it's one of those where it's like, it's very obviously mine, right? Like I can spot one of my photos a mile away. And there's not much I can do about it, right? It's like, social media is going to grab it. AI is going to grab whatever it is. It's nice to, again, feel like I'm part of a photographic community. So like I've seen a handful of times where someone will post one of my photos in a Facebook group somewhere, not give me attribution, not even say this was shot by somebody else. They, kind of don't overtly say this is mine, but they hint at it. And there'll be a handful of photographers who will be like, are you going to credit Stu for using that photo? Right? Like we kind of watch out for each other, right? And so it's like, hey, are you going to credit so-and-so for the photo you just used of theirs? And so I feel like that's the best we can do. To the best of my knowledge, nobody has yet, and I'm going to say yet because it probably will happen someday, used my stuff for commercial purposes. Like, I know sometimes people will end up using it. People have said, I want to put, this photo on the cover of my book or in my book or whatever. And there's no way for me to know every cover of every book and, what, like, I can't. And so I don't think any of us can. So again, if you have ideas on how to stop that, I'm happy to hear them. But I kind of feel like if someone's going to go to that trouble, fine. Like, because
Ever want to put copyright or watermark on the photo itself? To
well,
help
I mean,
prevent that?
yeah, so this is where it's like it kind of depends. Like I know that some places like Reddit and places, some of the, so like I was mentioning only in SF, for example, SF Gates the same way. Like if I put a watermark on my photos, they're not going to share it. They just won't. And so like they might reach out to me and say, hey, take the watermark off and then we'll share it. But they'll probably follow the path of least resistance on something, which is they'll just grab somebody's photo that doesn't have a watermark on it and reshare that. And so again, this is where I know people like SF Gate, if they're going to share one of my photos, will absolutely give me photo credit. And so I would much rather have them easily share my stuff because I gain 50 followers anytime SF Gate runs one of my photos. And so I want to make it as easy as possible for people to kind of spread the gospel.
Is it how the Grateful Dead became famous by letting people tape their shows?
It's good analogy. Yeah, I mean, this is where, like, again, if I were trying to chase every dollar, I might be more concerned. But my goal with photography, as I said, is much more about putting a smile on people's faces and brightening up people's days. Yeah, sure, money is great, and if people want to buy my stuff, great. But yeah, I'm not overly concerned about it, but maybe I should be more concerned about it. But no, I do like your choice in phone. Like I gave a photography talk to my business school class at our last reunion. And just like I asked you guys in the Facebook group what you wanted to hear about, I asked them to submit questions ahead of time. And one of the questions was, how do I shoot better photos on my iPhone? And jokingly, I said, easy, get a Samsung. I've never done a side-by-side comparison, but I know at least in my family that my sisters will, at this point say, you just take the pictures because it's going to come out better. I'm like, all right.
I hate my Samsung. I can't stand it. I used to like it, but I don't know if it's just getting old or what. I have the S21, and I just find it a really inferior phone. So I'm glad you're happy with it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the 21 is getting old. So come to Michael or me for more tips on using it and/or upgrade.
I wonder if they wear out or what, because I really, I can't. My Samsung is really disappointing me.
Sorry to hear that.
So I'm ready to buy another phone if anybody has a recommendation. Right now, I'm thinking about getting the latest Pixma. I mean, the latest whatever Google phone.
Still in the Android family. I'll support that.
But I don't know what I'm going to get. I know that Don just got an iPhone and he's pretty happy with it.
Other thoughts, questions, comments, things you're taking away from today?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stu.
My pleasure.
I can leave this open if you all want to stay on and chat or and I hope some of you will come join our Facebook page. What else can I mention?
And we got it done in about an hour, right?
Yeah, it was perfect.
And Stephanie, why don't you teach us how to organize? You're really good at that.
Organize my image. Well, I think it's a little different for me because my clients have names, so I can just look them up. And if I do a shoot, it's like 400 images. I bet I'm not a landscape photographer. How many do you walk away with if you shoot something?
Couple hundred sometimes, but again, how many do I end up using? One, two,
Right.
right? Like it's not like a client shoot where it's like, here's the engagement photos and here's like 50 of them that you want to see.
What would you say is the easiest app to use? I don't again, I don't shoot landscape, but I did a shoot yesterday and the sky was boring and white. And I had about 15 minutes of good light. And
So what app is best for
what?
which,
Sorry, my cat is playing the piano.
as they do?
The app for to learn when we're gonna have a nice sky as a plain boring white sky.
So in terms of sunsets and sunrises, I use two apps. One is called Sunset WX, which is actually just a website, sunsetwx.com, and it'll kind of show you a map of the United States and show you for both sunrise and sunset. When, like if it's in red, then they're predicting colorful sunrise or sunset. And then another one that I use is Alpenglow, ALPENGLOW. But I've also been working on building my own version of those in pick your favorite, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. I'm starting with like, tell me about the sunset or sunrise in San Francisco. But there's no reason I couldn't extend it to, give me your zip code, your, whatever. And because ideally, like Alpenglow will give a score for the next couple of days for both sunrise and sunset. So, and they'll update it all the time. And it's not always accurate, but, directionally, it's not bad. Like 2 nights ago, I wasn't paying attention to it because, as I said, we don't typically get colorful skies this time of year. And I kind of looked out the window and I was like, what is going on? And I looked at them like, oh, look at that. Yeah, they were predicting a 74 on a 0 to 100 scale. So if I had paid attention, I might have been watching more carefully. But, this is another one of those lessons where like sometimes photographers will chat like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed that sunrise or that sunset. And it's like, well, good news is as long as you're around, there will be more. But, there have also been some epic ones. Like a bunch of us still talk about New Year's Day. I think it was 2025, where it was just unbelievable.
Where did you shoot it?
That one I shot I think on my drone. So I used to frequently get up and drive to Ina Coolbrith Park in Russian Hill in San Francisco, which if you have not been there, I highly recommend. It's not really a park, but it's got this beautiful view of downtown San Francisco. So it's facing east. And so it's a fantastic place for sunrises. And then after I got the drone, I was like, well, I could drive over there. Like my apartment faces north and west, so I don't have an eastern exposure. So these days I'll get on the webcams and I'll look at those. And also, like, I put a link to some of the local webcams on my site. So if you go to my website, look in the upper right, you'll see Bay Area webcams. But there are plenty of webcams around all over the place. But I highlighted a couple that work for me. And so I now will look at the webcams, and if it looks like the sky's going to light up, and it's one of those, like, again, I can tell because I've stared at enough of them. I'll walk out my apartment door and like I live in an apartment building with another building next to it, and I'll just go in between the two and pop my drone up in the air because you can go up to 400 feet, which is well above anything in this neck of the woods. Oh, one of the things I forgot to mention is serendipity plays such a role in my photography. I did end up starting a blog, which I need to update at some point, but it's called Stu's Serendipity Stories. And so I tell some of the stories behind things like the Christmas rainbow that I mentioned.
Hmm.
But I also tell the story of a hike. This is not really a photography story, but it's related. So I went for a hike last Labor Day, found the wallet of a Vietnamese citizen in the Marin Headlands. And I tell the story of the 3 or 4 day attempt to try and find this guy so I could get his wallet back to him. And then I mentioned that, and it included calling the Vietnamese consulate, calling the police, exhaustive Google searching, all of this stuff. And I mentioned the community that I help run for experienced professionals. Some of the members of that community are here. And there's a woman who lives in Stockholm in the community, but happened to be in San Francisco visiting her parents. And we met to get coffee. And when I picked her up at BART downtown, I parked on the left side of the street. She was coming off the right side of the street, ran across a couple lanes of traffic, got in my car and said, running across traffic like that reminds me of when I lived in Vietnam. And I was like, you lived in Vietnam? And so I told her the whole story of the wallet and how I had not been able to find much about this guy except the company he worked for. And she's like, I think I know somebody who works at that company. And later that day, she's like, hey, guess what? Turns out my guy knows your guy. Can I connect you? And I'm like, yes. And so 10 o'clock at night, the Tuesday after Labor Day, I get a message. Hey, Stu, I hear you might have my wallet. I'm leaving town tomorrow. Can I get it? I'm like, where are you right now? He's like, I'm at my hotel in downtown San Francisco. I'm like, I am getting in my car. I'm on my way. And so serendipity, right? It's just like, it is fun for me to see what the universe does. And even so, here's a photography twist on that same day was California henge. So I'd gone out that morning to shoot California henge and it was totally fogged out. And so there was a dad walking across the street with his son on his shoulders. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I took a picture of that. And then I heard a woman behind me say something. And I was like, oh, are they yours? And she's like, yeah. I said, oh, cool. Have a nice day. And I walked away. That was the extent of our conversation. So now I'm in North Beach having coffee with this woman who lives in Stockholm, but whose parents are from San Francisco. And we're sitting there having coffee for 2 hours. And because of the place we chose and the fact that we sat outside and that she was facing in one direction, I was facing the other, 2 hours later, that same family was walking down the street. And I was like, I saw you guys this morning. And so, we started talking. I'm like, where are you guys from? And they're like, oh, we're from a small town in Germany. You never would have heard of it. And I was like, well, try me. And they said, it's called Kaiserslautern. And I was like, not only have I heard of it, I've been there because and they're like, were you in the military? Because it's a US military base. I'm like, no, but I'm a big soccer fan. And the 2006 World Cup, the United States played against Italy in Kaiserslautern. And I was at that game. And then, I look up the guy who had been carrying his son on his shoulders on Instagram. He's like a famous photographer in Germany with like 150,000 followers. And so it's just one of those where it's like, again, like I love the way the universe drops these things into our laps if you're just kind of open to it. And it's like, all right, what's going on, wild, wacky universe? What are you doing today?
Did you give him the photo?
I did. All right. There we go. Any other
Thank you,
thoughts?
Stu. It was great.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks for being here. Thanks to all of you for being here. Thanks to my non-Fairfax Photo Club friends for showing up, particularly Ladine on the East Coast, Christian, Minnesota, Rick on the East Coast, Ada on the East Coast. We've got some strong sleep-deprived people here, but I appreciate it.
Join our group. I just put the link in the chat, and I'll
Awesome.
the YouTube channel too.
Welcome back, you guys. Rick, why didn't you put in the chat that the Knicks won tonight?
Knicks did win, up 2-0, Stu.
Bummer.
Oh,
Hi,
I
Rick.
was really tempted to do that, but I didn't.
What would have stopped you? What did stop you? You didn't want to upset Ladine from Cleveland. I get it. But by the way, Christian, Ladine, Christian, you're both open water members, so you'll see each other at some point.
Hi, nice to meet you, Christian. Hi, Rick.
Likewise, thanks.
You.
Cool.
All right.
This was awesome. Thank you.
Stephanie, thank you again for
Thank you. I'm so
inviting me. Appreciate it.
bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hi, thank you.
I will, oh shoot. I will post the recording tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Bye.